Get started promptly, and what we'll do, just per usual, we'll take any questions at the end of this lecture review on what you had with that, and then we will jump into the clean, where Alan will talk about functionality, usage, and how to analyze it and clean that movement up, because I know that's tough. As we open up with this age, this disparity here of what's normal aging, is what we're going to talk about. Loading for your older populations. What we're used to seeing as normal aging is really the slow decline into deconditioned state, and then dysfunction, pain, pharmaceuticals, surgeries, lack of movement, and then slowly tapering off and costing the medical system a bunch of money in your last 30 years of existence on this earth before you finally slide off the edge of the cliff. What we really want is to keep people thriving throughout their later years, so that you're not on pharmaceuticals, that you're not needing unnecessary surgeries, that you don't have musculoskeletal pain plaguing you and keeping you down from doing functional activities and those sorts, and keeps you moving till one day you just slide off into the night, right? You go to sleep and you just don't wake up. And who knows at what age that'll be, right? We don't even know yet the full extension of human life is what we can actually get out of this life if we treat our body well, if we eat well, and if we exercise regularly, right? Some of the things that we're used to seeing with quote unquote old and age is really just deconditioning, right? And what we want to be able to do is this here, right? If only there was a way, if there was some intervention that allowed people to keep thriving in their older age and their golden years, right? Kept them strong, kept them functionally fit. And oh yeah, it's called lifting weights and intensity related movement, right? And so we've got just the thing for that. It's called getting off your ass and asking your doctor if that's right for you, no matter what age you are, right? So getting comfortable loading our older adults and treating them much like masters athletes, right? Like we're trying to get rid of this stigma here, which is the snippet that we saw on a Facebook post not too long ago of like, you really should treat your older adults differently than your younger adults and athletes. And that's PT of the 80s, and that's the reason why older folks aren't getting better. It's the reason why our geriatric population is getting weaker, is getting discharged into nursing homes rather than going back home at the end of the day, right? It's because we're not comfortable putting intensity to our older patients. We're not comfortable loading them up as heavily as we should. We're worried. We're worried about working with them. We feel like they're frail and fragile. And in reality, to protect them from that frailty, we need to be comfortable loading them heavier. We are their lifeboat in that sense of trying to get them stronger and making sure that they don't fall victim to the deconditioned state that other folks do, right? So we got to get comfortable with this. And I know it looks like a quote unquote novel approach to weight bearer strength program, but it really shouldn't be, right? Using barbell loads, using dumbbell loads, using classical strength training in our older populations as a quote feasible and improving standing up more than non-weight bearing strengthening program. Like, we should be exercising. We should be doing this with our older folks. Using lower level stuff is failing them in the long term. I know it feels like it's quote doing no harm to do or low intensity exercises with these folks, but in reality, it's just like not doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. That's what using low level exercise is like for these population. And in reality, that is doing harm, right? So you have a responsibility to be able to load them appropriately and dose them with intensity to keep them safe. The cost of weakness is expensive, right? Per individual, about $6,000 it costs the healthcare system per year. Those without muscular weakness only cost the health system about $2,400, so about a $3,000 to $3,500 difference if you're strong versus when you're weak. When you're older and between the age of 71 to 80, that's a significant difference when all we have to do is just put kettlebells and dumbbells in someone's hands, and they save the healthcare system a ton of money, about $3.25 billion annually in the United States, right? So getting comfortable, getting them stronger, and what that does, physiologically from the cardiovascular standpoint, what it can do from the pulmonary system. Like, look, if you are not well trained, if you are not well adapted to exercise, we see a slower response to exercise, which means you have this delayed spike in your heart rate, which is not what we want to see, right? You have less tolerance to the overall workload at higher intensities, right? We have this increased work of breathing when someone is having to, all of a sudden move heavy loads, and they're not acclimated to that. Their body and their system hasn't adapted to intensity as it will and as it should, right? You see this sudden spike in intensity in their pulmonary function, more resistance when breathing heavy. They're more likely to get sick if they're not well cardiovascularly trained, right? This is no surprise to anyone who has a background in exercise, but understand that this applies to older populations equally as much, right? We know that the interval training is very effective for older folks, and that your rest periods with doing this is important, right? How do we combat, this decrease in cardiovascular performance, this decrease in pulmonary function? We're going to try to improve their overall aerobic, capacity with the use of interval work, right? You guys should be used to hearing us talk about the use of EMOMs and these sorts of things, but giving someone like a 3 on 1 off type work to rest ratio, right? We're going to go 3 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest, and this can be in the form of an EMOM. Station 1, station 2, station 3, and then station 4 is your rest interval. Your geriatric folks love that a bunch, right? Because they can, like, we're going to do exercise A, B, and C, and then I'm going to let you sit and grab a drink of water, and we're going to go back to it again, right? So that it's a little bit more comforting for them, knowing that they're not just going to like keep their heart rate high. We're going to push it high and allow it to come back down. Push it high, allow it to come back down. And over time, what we see is overall improvements in their ventilatory threshold, their aerobic capacity, with older folks exercising at intervals like these. So consider integrating some 3 on 1 off work with your patient population, right? Skipping past this because I want to get into some other stuff here. When we look at aerobic versus resistance or concurrent exercise training in older adults, it looks like an and not or approach, which shouldn't surprise you, right? Let's do resistance training, let's do aerobic training, both of which, when combined, led to improvements in cardiovascular fitness and improvements in strength and power output, right? And we also saw cognitive function improving in these groups as well, right? Improved more in your aerobic group. So really, really cool to be able to tie in things like, hey, we're going to get your body feeling well, but this is also going to keep your mind sharp. We're going to be doing coordination-based exercises. We're going to be doing exercises at speed. So you're going to have to make decisions in a quick sort of manner, right? This is going to overall keep the cognitive function sharp as well. Not only things like, leg strength and how well your ticker's running. From a functional standpoint, you'll see gait speed improving. You'll see body fat around the trunk starting to change, which are all predictors for overall mortality and morbidity, right? We want to see these objective variables be able to improve with time as well, which is what we do. So get people in a program that's going to combine both aerobic and resistance training for them, and maybe in the form of, I don't know, high intensity functional movements, constantly varied sounds like a good way to do that, right? Knowing that our older folks lose that type 2 muscle fiber production as they get older, and we see that loss of power as being a big issue with overall function and falling with your older folks, you got to figure out a way to do some power training in your older adults as well, so that they can learn to kind of preserve what they have. It's not just so much slow speed that matters, but their overall reaction time, their quick speed to be able to do that. So integrating some more power-based movements will be helpful with these folks as well. And it doesn't have to be cleans, but we'll show you a few options of some different cleans that can help to express speed and power for your older folks to be able to train those benefits as well. Excuse me. I just had a late dinner and it's like still with me. We look at this study on top, low load versus high load resistance training. What they found in this study is that, hey, if we take low load folks to failure and we take high load folks to failure, we see very similar results. So if you don't have super high loads in the clinic, you can use a lower load and just take them to overall failure to try to get strength gains, hypertrophy effects, power, strength output effects with that as well. So if that's all you got, figure out how to dose it well so that individual is going to failure. And then you can also blend in some higher load resistance training as well if you have the luxury of doing that. We look at the overall effects of bodyweight squat training with muscular size, strength, and balance ability. So talking about frail older adults, balance, well, you wouldn't want individuals to fall, break a hip, go to a nursing home, and then die of pneumonia, right? That's the onset that we see a lot of folks. What we do with these folks 2 times a week, they did 48 bodyweight chair squats. They saw improvement in their quad thickness and knee extensor torque, which is just essentially that Bring Sally Up, Bring Sally Down song. Put that one on the radio. And every time the song says bring Sally up, they stand up, and bring Sally down, they squat down again. It's a really good way to just build a lot of strength and capacity in the legs, which overall increases muscular size in the legs. And this is a big predictor of someone's overall mortality and morbidity, second only to VO2 max, right? Like how strong are someone's legs that will tell you how long they're going to live. Very, very, very important in your older adults, right? We love this video from Jerry. If you haven't seen it, now is a good time as any to show it. Here's Jerry showing us a textbook deadlift at 205. She sets up perfectly, as we've talked in this course before. Back's flat. Man, we always talk about folks like, how many people in this room would have a hard time deadlifting 205? A lot of us would. As clinicians, a lot of us would be scared to load our older adults that heavy. A lot of us may be scared to like put a barbell in front of Jerry and line her up with some bumper plates and say, keep your back flat and stand up with this weight. Good. Was that easy? Yeah, it was too easy. Let's go heavier. And don't concern yourself about, oh, that's too much weight for someone that's older. Concern yourself with what's the right amount of load for you right now to get you stronger. And as long as you stay with me, I have no ceiling on your overall performance benefits. Like, we're going to keep training this just like we would anyone else. And I can tell you that Jerry is not going to fall. Jerry is not going to like have a hard time walking to her bathroom or picking up her groceries off the ground if she's deadlifting 205 pounds, right? So you need to be the folks that are comfortable loading your older adults to this level, right? Look at this Jerry doing rope climbs as a senior, right? We've got George doing some heavy weighted back squats to keep his back strong and his legs strong, right? We've got Ron over here doing some cleans and some deadlifts with a personal trainer or a CrossFit coach watching and helping him out, right? So we've got to be comfortable in that space doing this with these folks. In our gym, we'll see folks anywhere in their 40s, 50s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s. We've got Ron, who's a favorite athlete of mine. Ron deadlifts from an elevated surface to help just his overall mobility going down to the ground, but deadlifts 300 pounds, like 315 from like a 3-inch blocks, right? Very strong, comes to 5:45 a.m. class. Like, this is what your clinic, your gym space could look like if you build an environment that's conducive to older adults getting moving, right? And something that we're looking at rolling out in the gym is Alan specifically is looking at rolling out like a seniors hour, silver sneakers class, or I don't know what he's planning on labeling it. I'm looking forward to how creative we can get with that. But that's honed into just folks that are 60 years plus or 65 years plus, and where we can give them an hour of high intensity functional movement that gets rid of some of the complex skill stuff, but still pushes in the silver nanos. That's cool, Courtney. Still pushes in the components of intensity, pushes in the components of load, in a community of people that they're comfortable working out with, right? People their age, at their speed, and overall watch them get fit, right? So we're looking forward to that. Other resources that you need to check out Dustin and Christina in our modern management of the older adult course with the Institute of Clinical Excellence. We've got 2 online courses of fundamentals and advanced, and they do a live course very similar to our setup of the fitness athlete. And if you're expecting this course to be slow moving, it's anything but, right? They really give us a run for our money in their live course of like being a class that really does more movement than us, right? So we're always trying to stay on our game and try to do more movement than the modern management of the older adult class, right? So check them out. Christina's project is Stave Off, her gym/clinic up in Canada. And Dustin's project is the Senior Rehab Project, which has been rebranded to Jaro's Health. You can find his podcast as well. So they do a lot of great work as far as moving the needle on how we're treating and working with older adults. So check them out if you see a primary caseload with older folks, right? At the end of the day, the last thing on older adults, you can't afford to fail them, right? Like, you know, they will do what you tell them to do, and they are counting on you to add years to their life, and they don't even know it yet. So don't fail your older folks by giving them low intensity stuff, right? You need to give them high intensity exercise and literally add years to their life with every session they're working with you. Okay, kids and teens. A lot of stigma about working with kids and getting kids some strength training. Like, oh my God, is it going to stunt their growth? Unanimously, all of that is myth. You really want to just emphasize good foundational movement patterns like GPP, general physical preparedness and conditioning, and get them a healthy relationship with exercise from an early age. And you can watch kids get strong. We've got a 15-year-old in CrossFit that's been doing it at our gym since he was 9 years old, and he just overhead squatted 255 for 3 reps. Like, he's got a 200-pound snatch. He can clean 250 plus. Like, very, very strong kid at 15 years old. And that's because he just started working on these patterns at a young age, right? And no, none of it stunted his growth. He's taller than I am now. He's a grown-ass man at 15, right? It's a big deal from a chronic disease standpoint as well, not only a performance standpoint, But a chronic disease standpoint, this is starting to affect our youth at a much, much earlier age, where we're starting to see type 2 diabetes onset in like 12-year-olds, which absolutely should not be the case, right? Seeing obesity as being a problem. 33% of children overweight, 17% of them are obese, right? The 300% increase in just the last 50 years from 1970 till now, right? And you can make the argument about the food, you can make the argument about activity. Honestly, like, do what you can to change that, which is just encouraging more activity at a younger age, right? And if you can get in there and start talking to them about eating more vegetables and eating less processed sugar and drinking more water and not drinking as much pop, you're having a real combined effect on the obesity epidemic in our young kids, right? With type 2 diabetes, 1 to 2% had type 2 in 1990. We're now up to 45%, guys, with type 2 diabetes. It's super sad to see, right? So what can you do to move the needle on this? We've got to really, the treatment choices, lifestyle intervention. We've got to be the folks that if you're seeing someone for like, a pediatric related rehab, right? Like they hurts their shoulder or they've got a knee injury or whatever, and you can overall change their mindset on exercising and how they're eating throughout your care, throughout those 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever you're seeing them for, you can have a really lasting effect on that kid's life. So another area that we need to be working diligently in, strength train our kids, right? Like, here's a 16-year cross-sectional study looking at measuring height, weight, standing broad jump, grip strength, sit-ups, arm bend, or bent arm hang. Like that 10-year-olds in 2014 were taller and heavier compared to 2008, right? Physical activity was significantly lower, right? So a downward temporal trend in muscular fitness is independent of body size changes with a decrease in physical activity, right? Get kids active, get them strength training, get them stronger. They need it. They're literally the trajectory of their life depends upon it, right? Looking at should kids lift, we talked about this earlier. I tipped this off. This is a myth from research in the 70s. What does the American Academy of Pediatrics say? Yes, they should strength train. So if you have parents come to you and say, I don't know, I don't really think I want my kids lifting, you would say like, oh, well, even the American Academy of Pediatric physicians say that they want kids strength training, right? Maybe, right? But maybe we're having them do heavier loads for 5, right? Finding a near 5 rep max, or finding what we call in the gym like a technical max, right? Where they're working at heavier loads, but they're not letting their form degrade at all, right? Until that Tanner stage 5, which is when you start to see armpit hair, pubic hair, and then you can really start to push some of the max loading conditions after that. But we have a CrossFit Teens program at our gym, which we're going to talk to you about in a minute, and we do a lot of sub-maximal related, like threshold training, I want a technique max, right? And the minute I start to see things start to waver from that, we're gonna cut you off, right? So I control the overall loading with those folks. It needs to be universal, right? Like in much like our squat science literature needs to be universal of like we have to be on the same page here. We also need to be on the same page with kids lifting, like being comfortable, like, yes, they need to be in a strength and conditioning program at a young age, because what's happening is that they're jumping into sport at a young age without a background of some foundational movement principles. And it should be the opposite. Let's teach them some foundational movement principles and then put sport on top of that as a way to express the skills that they've learned in the gym, right? And that's what we're doing, skill training in a squat and a push-up, being able to hang from a bar, being able to push, pull, throw, run, jump, those sorts of things, and then go apply that in sport, right? So be comfortable with kids saying, yeah, at a young age, yeah, mom and dad, he can get involved in the strength and conditioning program. I know a really good gym down the road that's got a CrossFit Kids class, or they got a CrossFit Teens class that he'll be a good fit into. He'll have fun. He'll learn a healthy relationship with exercising at a young age, and he'll get a tremendous amount of benefits from resistance training, right? Know that anything done too much is dangerous, or done without caution is dangerous, right? Injuries in youth strength training are almost exclusively associated with misuse of equipment, inappropriate weights, improper technique, which is absolutely no different than the 42-year-old adult who came into my gym and didn't want my coaching and rounded his back on every deadlift and all that other crap I have to see, and then says, oh, my back hurts now all of a sudden. It's like, yeah. So get them involved somewhere that has good coaching, where they can learn how to move well under good technique before they add excessive load. And we use load as the reward, right? You get the light training bar until you start to show me better movement, and then I'll reward you with the 35-pound bar, and then I'll reward you with the 45-pound bar after that, right? So using that as a reward for good movement, right? The kids operate in that environment of like, I want to do good to move on to the next level, right? It's like a video game for them. CrossFit Kids specialty course, which I don't know if they still have or not with their restructuring of the CrossFit training program, if they're still doing kids certs or not, but they used to go around and have a fantastic course and working specifically with the kid population, anywhere from like your pre-K through high school, and what the goals for like each milestone are, each time frame is for like your pre-K related kids, your middle school related kids, and then into your high school kids. Very, very good course that you don't have to be a level 1 to go take. A lot of teachers, gym coaches go take this course, and I really think it's fantastic to get everyone on the same page with like teaching squat related movements, press related movements, those sorts of things. And then obviously we talked about our teen CrossFit course. There's Matthew. I talked about him. He's 15 now. I think he was probably, I don't know, 13 in this photo, as tall as his dad. And is getting stronger. And he played football for the first time this year as a freshman in high school, and just dominated. And the coaches were like just blown away by how strong he was. And then the coaches still had audacity to say, "You do CrossFit?" I'm like, I just handed you a 15-year-old who can toss your JV linemen all around all over the place, and now you're gonna like try to shit on my strength training program. Get out of here. Have a blast with these kids, teaching discipline, teaching hard work, teaching conditioning, and all by using the air squats and wall balls and pull-ups and all sorts of things. So really, really cool stuff, really fun stuff, even though they can get on my nerves sometimes. Don't just change lives, shape lives. And you can do this even more at a young age, right? Like when I get the kids in there and get them involved, I play the music they like, we crank it up, get them really excited, scream really super loud, have a blast. And when they don't want to work hard, you can use that as a time to kind of teach some discipline and teach some life skills that can really, shape, like we said, shape the trajectory of their forward years, right? To try to spare time, adaptive athletes is another area that we really should have a big part at, as far as from a vascular remodeling standpoint of what aerobic and physical strength training can do for your adaptive athletes. This is comparing blood flow in thoracic abdominals. The femoral artery flow, similar between road cyclists and below the knee amputees, and athletes who reported exercising the residual limb, right? So it's a use it or lose it principle with this, right? And there's also this big psychological impact of sport, as far as, still returning someone who's disabled, who maybe has lost a limb or paralyzed or something, to be able to return to a sport related thing that's competitive, right? Like these social groups and how important that is. In this quote here at the conclusion, these disabled athletes have significantly higher self-esteem, greater life satisfaction, happiness, and more externalized than your disabled non-athletes. So having an environment where it's like, hey, we can do things to help you, we can modify, we can scale movements. You don't have to just kind of like be limited to your disability forever, right? If you have the time, this is a fantastic documentary to watch on Netflix. It's called Ogar. It's about Kevin Ogar, who's was a really competitive CrossFit athlete and had an unfortunate injury at a non-sanctioned CrossFit event and became paralyzed from the waist down, but has overcome, has overcome his disabilities, earned a spot on CrossFit Level 1 training staff, one of the highest ranked coaching staffs in the world, and goes around and heads up the CrossFit Adaptive Athlete staff now, which is, I think, just adaptive athlete training. It's rebranded now as well, so I'll have to get the final name for that. Alan took this course though and had nothing but just fantastic things to say about it, from how to scale rope climbs to scaling pull-ups and muscle-ups, and literally you can just be blown away on Instagram and on Facebook by the things that you will see folks in a wheelchair being able to do, or folks with one limb being able to do. And every year during the Open, CrossFit does a really fantastic job of highlighting these folks, of watching people do wall balls with one arm, and modifications to certain movements to be able to do the Open workouts. Very, very inspiring as well. Pregnancy, postpartum. We have a full unit on this in the Advanced Concepts course, where we will talk about exercise modifications during pregnancy. Thank you for the name there, Courtney. Adaptive Training Academy. We have a full unit where Christina gives us a sample lecture on this before her full-on pregnancy postpartum course has launched. So you can check her out on that. The Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete, Pregnant and Postpartum Athlete. This is an 8-week online course, working on a internal pelvic live course to be announced, right? Fantastic course here, the online course. You will learn a tremendous amount about working with pregnant athletes, continuing to help them train through pregnancy, all the way through delivery, postpartum, and then returning them back to their prior level of function postpartum. So really, really cool stuff. At the end, 2 options. You stop being terrified of human movement in infinite ways that it can express itself. You can scale it, regressions, progressions. It's endless. Or you stop calling yourself a movement expert. And we're starting to put our flag in the ground here. We're on board with this movement expert term, but we really got to step our game up if we're going to use that term expert, right? We're not just going to throw that around. It's hard to call yourself a movement expert and watch yourself get outshined by a local CrossFit coach who's more willing to load Jerry up with a 205-pound deadlift, and we're giving Jerry pink deadlifts or pink kettlebells and having her just walk around with them in the clinic. You need to stop being scared. Stop being scared of picking up heavy bars. Stop being scared of cleans and snatches and squats and presses, and learn how to scale them and be comfortable dosing them out with folks. Alan gave you a case study of working with Rosina, and I'll be honest, I thought I was pretty comfortable loading someone up, and then Alan would be like, yeah, I had Rosina do the class WOD for today. And I was like, Alan, what? I said, the class WOD was thrusters and burpees over the bar. I said, what do you mean? Yeah, we modified it. I had her do, she did, med ball thrusters to a chair, and I had her do burpees, step out burpees, off the counter, and just was unapologetic in his ability to take literally any workout and scale it down for Rosina. So if you didn't look at the case study for this week, go back and check that one out. But at the end of the day, that's a movement expert. That's somebody who is so 100% comfortable in exercise and scaling it to whoever, wherever they're at, to get the best possible results for them, and isn't going to back away from anything. He's not going to shy away from deadlifts. He's not going to shy away from squats and presses. He's going to work them in because he knows that's what people need, and he's not going to fail them, right? You either get on board with that or stop calling yourself a movement expert, because at the end of the day, somebody else is more willing to get people moving than you, and it's hard to hold that title of expert if you're not willing to lean into that and to be comfortable with that. Most people like lifting heavy shit with their friends. They just don't know it yet. So if you can show that to them, if you could build an environment where they learn that that's kind of a cool hobby they didn't know they had, I think they'll be really happy to do so. So it's already not 8:29. Shit, way too late. Alan, if we don't have any questions, it's your time to talk about the clean. Waiting for questions before we bounce it over to Alan's screen.
I'm going to get set up here. If you have questions, throw them out there. If not, we'll start to look at cleans. If my internet dies, I'm going to quit ice and go and move in the woods. So, if I disconnect from this call, you'll never hear from me again. I can't go through that again this week. All right, so the clean. So a lot of folks dropped off this week, as we tend to see when we get to Olympic lifting. Before you get too upset with how your clean looked, especially if you were somebody that said, this is the first time I've ever tried this, don't be so hard on yourself. There are people that literally clean and snatch 3 to 6 days a week, and that's all they do, and they're still not the best at it. So it's very, very technical movement, much more so than a back squat or a deadlift. So don't be too upset at yourself for not mastering the clean and the snatch after 3 reps of your first time ever doing it. Something I've done over the past, I don't know, Mitch, two months now is spend a dedicated hour each week of Olympic weightlifting with Mitch, just because the amount of technical work you get in a CrossFit class is not enough to be really good at these. And I was getting to the point where I started to hate them. So spending dedicated time each week working on Olympic weightlifting is something you'll need to do to even bump the needle forward very slightly. So keep all that in mind. That being said, let's watch the best in the world clean here. So this is CJ Cummings. He's 19. He clean and jerks above 400 now, a couple times his body weight. He snatches almost 3 times his body weight, world record holder, gold medalist multiple times over. So let's watch him. I believe this is a 395 clean and jerk. So here we go, full speed. It happens so fast, it's almost hard to see. So we'll watch he's gonna jerk it twice because why not, right? He's gonna jerk it twice and then we'll watch slow-mo of the clean. So there's the jerks. So let's go back to the clean. It happened almost instantaneously. So the setup, points of performance, not quite a full squat on the bar, but definitely more of a squat variation of the deadlift than how we instruct the deadlift. So he's not sitting with high hips forward of the bar, spine of the scap over. He's more a little bit behind the bar, definitely in more of a squat position, lined up, deadlift stance, wider grip, so that it's called a clean grip. So the position that you can receive in your front rack position. Off the floor, the main thing here, boy, it happens so fast. Off the floor, the main thing is that torso angle does not change. Arms stay straight. So he's at the knee now. All he's done is push the floor away with his legs, getting his knees out of the way. But look at how close that barbell is still to his body. It's not getting away from him. His lats are engaged. His arms are straight. Now we'll take it forward a frame. Above the knee, still out and over the bar. Many folks here rush it. This is where most folks go wrong. This second pull, they know they need to make contact with the bar. They start to get impatient. They start to bend their arms. They start to pull with their chest and try and get that bar to their thigh or to their hip with the snatch, and that's where things start to go wrong. But look at how straight his arms are, how straight his legs are, but he's still out and over in front of that bar with 395-ish pounds here. The triple extension happens so fast here, it's almost hard to see. There it is. I don't know that I can get it because it's going to happen fast. It already happened. So triple extension, making contact. A lot of folks are going to make contact early. They're going to rush it. They're going to make contact down almost at the knee. Think of an Olympic lift like a plane taking off. That pull from the ground is just those engines turning on when you pull away from the gate. You're going down the runway, but you haven't really engaged the jets yet. Once you get above the knee, the jets kick on, and we really build momentum. The more patient we can get and the higher we can make contact, the more time you have to build that momentum before the plane takes off. So his contact is actually going to be pretty much where he'll make contact for a snatch. And then there's that triple extension. And now this is a squat clean. So instead of trying to get as high as he can, he's going to try and get as low as he can under it. Fingertip grip. A lot of folks uncomfortable with the clean will try and catch it with a full grip, and they'll just not be able to receive a lot of weight because they're trying to catch it with elbows down with a full grip. So you have to get comfortable transitioning to that front squat fingertip grip and then stand it up for him out of a squat. Probably one of the most important cues I ever learned from Mitch is to treat every clean, every snatch as a squat. And that will help you get comfortable sticking your butt out and receiving heavy weight in more of a squat position instead of just with a toe heavy dip, which we'll see with some of your videos here in a second. Stands it up, and then he's going to go out to his jerk grip, but that's the clean. So we'll watch just the clean again in full speed. Boom. Done. That's how it's done. 2 seconds to get 395 to your shoulder. Not much of a shoulder exercise at all compared to the snatch. You don't need a lot of shoulder strength and stability. Pretty much all legs, really, really hammering home the importance of that triple extension of using your hip, using your glutes to get heavy weight up to your shoulder and receive it in the front rack position. So that's the best in the world. Now let's look at all of your videos by comparison. So we mainly look lateral view. I will tell you, slow motion when you're analyzing your own videos, when you're analyzing videos for patients and athletes, is probably the best thing you can do. Even with videos that look pretty good, lifts that look pretty good, successful lifts, and you think, well, it worked, there must not be much to fix. Being able to look in slow motion on your phone is very, very helpful, and then being able to put it in a BarPath app is even more helpful. So get comfortable with video analysis as well. We'll start with Adam's. The main reason we don't use anterior is we can't see very much. The main reason you use anterior is just to see how does the receiving position look with the front rack. So we're going to look at mainly lateral videos tonight. Here's Adam's video. Fast forward. Okay, oops, there's the pull. So let's go back to the setup. Do we like Adam's setup here? What do we think? Knowing what we just talked about with CJ's video, what do we think of Adam's setup? Could lower the hips a bit, Cody says. Yes, I would say too far over the bar. And so we're going to watch. If I can get forward. He's going to get tight. He's actually going to go even too much further over the bar, almost with a deadlift setup. And so just knowing your moment arms, you know the further you're in front of the bar, knowing we have to get that bar back to our hip and then to our shoulder because we're cleaning, not deadlifting, that's that much more work we have to do. And somehow, some way, we need to either get that bar back to ourselves or get ourselves to the bar. And if we watch in full speed, we see Adam jumps forward. So what happened there? Going back down. Because we're so far forward, even though we're in a pretty good position here, because we started so far forward and the bar is so far away from our body, to do anything with this barbell, Adam has to aggressively bring his hips to the bar because he can't possibly bring that bar all the way to his hips. And what does he do? He jumps forward to make contact, and then now has to jump forward and dive underneath of it to grab it. So he's able to still make the lift, but important to know when that barbell is that far out in front of you, when you start with it that much out in front of you in the setup, you have to do something to save it. Obviously, with a very, very heavy load, you're not going to be able to get away with something like that, and we'll see a video of that here in a second. So my main cue to Adam here is just as Cody says, bring your hips down. Get back behind that barbell a little bit further in your setup and reduce the work, reduce the amount of distance you have to cover with that barbell. Let's look at, this is Andrew, or Knight. He doesn't like to be called Andrew. He is a member at our gym. Friday, walked in, caught him just crushing some power cleans by himself at open gym. So here is Andrew's setup. What do we think here? Okay, hearing
Alan, I
silence.
think he's a little too far behind the bar.
Thanks, Mitch. I would agree. I would
Welcome,
actually
Alan.
tell him to lift his hips a little bit, which is exactly what we talked about after this. And we'll see if we go by the next frame, the very first thing he does is shoot his hips up and back first. So I would want him to be there in his setup before that barbell comes off the ground. So let's play at full speed and see what happens, knowing what we see in the setup. Fails the lift. So what happened? Almost the same issue, but now we need to raise his hips a little bit, but almost the same fault as we go frame by frame. He's got a little early arm bend, and then he's going to rush that triple extension. I love how far he is over the bar, though, above the knee. But again, because that barbell is so far away, he's got to really throw his hips at that bar and get underneath of it. Love his triple extension, but look at how far that bar is out in front of him. So that's a lot to recover. This would have been a PR for him, so very, very, very heavy lift. And then we see even dropping down into a squat, not able to save it in time and catch that heavy weight, and bails it forward. He said a couple swear words, threw the weight on the ground, and went home for the day. So my cue to him was lift your hips a little bit more in your setup on your clean. let's
I
look
think
at.
that's a fantastic cue, Alan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's look at Cody's videos. Cody sent me a whole bunch of videos. A bunch of them were light and worthless because he's such a strong dude and they look so good. But let's look at a couple videos from Cody starting to get heavy. Play it through. This is 260, I believe. Cody's on here. He can tell you for sure. I ran it through Iron Path. If you don't have Iron Path or Bar Path or Kilo Lift or any of the zillion Bar Path analysis apps out there now, you should definitely get one because it will help you a lot. Look at the Bar Path. So full speed, here's the lift. 260, contact, catch. Good lift. Rocks him back a little bit in his setup, which is there. Maybe a little bit too far over the bar, but not bad. Love the trunk angle, love the patience. Getting these back out of the way, out in front of the bar. We're going to see contact here at about mid-thigh. We're going to see the barbell move a little bit forward, but really not too much in front of where it started. His feet are just going to jump out and back slightly, and he's going to receive it in a nice quarter squat position, bending the knees, bending the hip, and then standing it up. Good lift. Now he sent us a fail. He said, failed this lift. Thinks if he can clean it up, he can definitely clear this and maybe 275 as well. So let's watch full speed. Bang, there it is, dumps it forward. Let's check his setup, which is there. Again, maybe a little bit too forward, but let's watch frame by frame what goes wrong. In the first pull, again, very, very solid. Trunk angle does not change. Keeps that barbell out in front of him. But what we see, if we watch this next frame, he rushes it. Boom, right there. You can see his knees start to come in, start to try and hit triple extension early. So there it is, making contact right above the knee. And that's going to launch that barbell too far out in front of him. He's going to get through the high pull, try and drop underneath of it and save it. So if we look at where it ended up from where it started, just a little bit too far in front of what we call the area of the base, which is basically the area of the foot where the barbell starts. So we see it come forward a little bit, but definitely advanced out in front of the area of the base here. And because it had to go far forward, he just can't receive it with enough time to save it, and he's going to bail it forward. So Cody texted this to me a couple of days ago. I texted him back and said, just be a little bit more patient in that pull, especially once you cross the knee, and let that barbell get further up your thigh before you make hip contact. Don't rush it. Don't jump out at it. Be patient with that pull. And so Cody said, it's funny you say that because now my coach has me doing some clean pulls where I pull to the knee and pause for 3 seconds, which is a good drill to teach patients to Cody says, I've irritatedly watched this video over 30 times now because of how high I let the bar get. Yeah, exactly. So he launches that thing out into orbit way higher than it needs to be. But Cody's coach has him doing clean pulls where he pulls to the knee and then pauses for 3 seconds and then does the clean, which just drills patience, gets rid of that kind of impatient, urgent feeling that folks tend to get when they get the barbell past the knee, that they have to launch their hip at the bar to get it to the shoulder or get it up overhead. So clean pulls with a pause at the knee can really help drill out that impatience, which is funny because that's what Mitch also makes me do. So that was my cue to Cody, was be more patient, try some clean pulls, and he's already working on that. So I have no doubt that he'll hit 275 soon. Cody, any comments, thoughts on your cleans?
No, that's pretty similar with what I saw and also felt. That bar in particular definitely banged up. My thighs pretty low. So, yeah.
How long you been doing clean pulls?
Well, and so when I took the advanced course, my power clean was significantly heavier than my squat clean.
Okay.
The last like months, I've been basically working on my squat cleans, flipped that, so my squat cleans are now heavier, and so probably now have gotten into this in the last like 3 weeks.
Okay. So you're on the right path then.
Yeah,
Good. Awesome. Yeah. So
we'll get 275.
I want to see it by Friday.
All right.
So often you'll run into people who are more comfortable with a power clean than a squat clean because they're just not comfortable catching it in a squat. And we really work with those folks to drill that out because you can always catch more weight in a squat than a power. Requires obviously more thoracic strength to catch heavy weight in a deep squat, but definitely getting more comfortable catching it in the squat. As I said before, probably the number one thing that helped me better with my cleans is to treat every clean as a squat and then just not squat it down when it's a power clean. We'll let you get comfortable receiving the bar in a variety of different positions. Let's look at Angel's video. Here's Angel's video full speed. I believe this is 135. A little bit rough, but we got it up there. Said she's kind of been plateaued here for a while. So let's look at her setup, which is there. What do we think about that setup? For time's sake, I'm going to tell you the secrets. I'm going to tell you I think she is too far forward in front of that bar. I think she needs, yes, good. Thank you. Thank you. Hips too high. I want to see a little bit more squat behind that bar. I also want to see you maintain your tension. You kind of play with it here. Find tension, lose tension, find tension, lose tension, and then pull and kind of yank that bar off the ground early. So get locked in, hips a little bit lower, keep that tension on board before you pull. As we get that barbell off the ground, partly because we lost tension already, as the barbell is at the knee, we're already bending the elbows. And so we say when the elbows bend, the power ends. So as soon as we start to bend those elbows and yank that bar, we're trying to muscle it overhead, and we've kind of given up on using our legs, which is the opposite of how it should be. Now we're going to rush that triple extension. Although it does look good, we're basically using our arms to pull that bar to our hip, and that's going to blow Angel back pretty significantly there. And then that receiving position is all knee. It's all forward, kind of a toe-heavy dip instead of using the hips. So getting comfortable receiving the clean with hip and knee flexion, that quarter squat position, instead of just with the knees, will let you have a more upright trunk and not get blown back into this position where it kind of throws her backwards, has to take a couple steps backwards to catch it. So Angel, hips down, find that lat tension, maintain that lat tension, keep those arms straight until you make contact, and then just get more comfortable receiving cleans in a quarter squat position using your hips, sticking your butt back a little bit, bending your knees into a quarter squat position. You're on here. What are your thoughts? I like the tips. Okay, fair enough. Right on. Let's flip it to Britt. Again, a newer lift, she says. So here's her setup. I like this for a deadlift. I do not like this for a clean, though. So like many of you would want to see her sink into a little bit more of a squat, bring her hips down. And then she has the problem that most people have when learning the Olympic lifts is, how do I get around my dang knees? These stupid knees are in the way. And so instead of moving her knees at all, she just kind of manhandles the barbell around her knees instead of trying to get her knees back. And so compared to what we saw with CJ's video or with Cody's video, at this position, we're almost in this squat when we should be over the barbell with hips high and knees almost straight. And then because of that, is going to have trouble bringing that barbell and sweeping it back to the hip and has to rush the triple extension. Looks pretty good. I love that triple extension. Nothing wrong with that. But then catching it kind of with an upright torso here. So it gets away with it because it's light. Would not get away with it if it was heavy at all. So getting those hips down, trying to stay as long and tall as possible. So stay in front of that barbell. Push your knees back is the cue. Drive your knees back, and then let that barbell sweep up your thigh to make contact, and then catch it in the quarter squat position. Let's see. We got time for maybe 2 or 3 more videos. Here is, that's not Courtney. This is Courtney. Here's Courtney's video. Boom. She did bar path for us. We didn't have to do it, so I love that. What do we think of Courtney's setup? I like the open mouth Valsalva. Aggressive. I like this setup. I like whatever app this is that puts down the area of the base for you. As we go through, she does a good job of getting her knees out of the way, still over that barbell. Knees almost perfectly straight. Going to make contact closer to the hip than the knee, which is what we like to see. Doesn't really jump too much. There's triple extension. I like that. This is really helpful. You can see the area of the base down here. We can see even though that barbell is going to move anterior naturally, it doesn't exceed the area of the base. So we know that it's not getting too far away from her. And then she's going to receive it in a beautiful quarter squat position, hip and knee flexion on board at the same time. And she's going to stand it up. So I like that power clean. I like that a lot. Courtney, what do you think? Nice work, Colin says. Sleeping baby on me felt much better than 20.4. A lot of cleans and jerks in 20.4. Here's Lindsay's video. She showed us a power and a squat. So let's look at, this is the power clean. It's going to show us a couple reps here. So here is her power clean setup. Just maybe a little bit too far in front of the barbell. Maybe drop the hips a little bit, get over the barbell a little bit more. As we pull from the floor, arms stay long. I like how long those arms stay. Good position there. Almost maybe a little bit too patient. Now we're fully over in almost like an RDL position. And then Lindsay said her main fault is she has trouble actually making hip contact. And I would say probably because of this. Because here we are in this position. We should already be moving into triple extension. And we don't really see bar contact. We do see a little bit of triple extension there, but I think it could be more aggressive, especially with the bar contact. But I like the receiving position as well. And then we're going to flip to her squat clean, which is here. And that looks a lot better. Hips are a little bit dropped here more. I think they could be dropped even a little bit more. And we're going to see that pull from the ground. Love that torso angle, arms straight. Here, we actually get bar contact, good triple extension, and then she is gonna dive underneath that bar and catch it in a nice full depth squat and stand it up. And so we were talking already on Facebook today, Lindsay and I, about working some cleans from the hang, some cleans from the hip to just work on her bar contact, work on her triple extension speed, to make bar contact more regularly, which is definitely drills that we use. We do stuff from the blocks as well, just to teach triple extension and kind of rep out triple extension to get people comfortable with making bar contact, with being patient, and using their legs and not their arms, by taking cleans and snatches from the hang and from the blocks versus from the floor, and then bringing the floor back in later. Got about 3 minutes left. Lindsay, any comments? And then if you have questions about the lecture, throw those in here as well before we go. Had about 15 more videos I wanted to look at. And that's okay. You'll see the most elite will get better and better at bringing it up higher at their hip. But anywhere mid-thigh and above is okay. We just don't want to see contact at the knee, or missing contact completely. Mitch, any thoughts there on mid-thigh versus all the way up at the hip for the clean?
I think a lot of that depends on grip width. That'll change that a lot. So I know a lot of weightlifting coaches will advocate for a slightly wider grip on your cleans, not your snatch grip width, but not rigid, just outside of shin. A slightly wider grip means the bar is going to hit a slightly higher on the hip, like the high third of the thigh, as opposed to right at midpoint of the thigh, right? So depending on your grip on the bar, you may have a little bit different contact point. Also, if you have an early arm bend and you maintain that arm bend, will change your contact point. I think at the end of the day, the higher on the thigh, for like, in my opinion, the better. I never want to see lower thigh contact. That tells me you're not finishing hip extension, you're not finishing your pull, and you're likely rushing it. So I at least want to see it at the halfway point, if not the upper third of the thigh.
Right on. Any final thoughts here or questions on the lecture in the last minute or two before we let you all go? Super pumped my internet, didn't I?
I'm super pumped you didn't have a breakdown. Well, here's the cool thing, guys, is that we get to do this all over again next week when we review snatches. So I really advocate for you guys to download the BarPath app and upload your snatch video with that if you can. You don't have to, it's certainly not mandatory, but to give yourselves a deeper look into BarPath analysis, especially for those of you more and more comfortable with these lifts, if you go ahead and grab that BarPath app, IronPath on Apple, and I think it's just called BarPath on Android. It's free. You can shoot your video and then drop it into that app, and it will trace your BarPath on it, like you saw with Cody's video tonight and some others. And then upload that video as your submission for the week. You'll have a much more clear idea of what went wrong or what areas could have improved for the lift, and then we can analyze from there. So it'll give us some cool context for next week. Alan, do you got anything for him before we launch week 8 content and send them out the door?
Nope. Principles are essentially the same for the snatch. First pull from the floor, second pull to the hip. So a lot of the stuff we've talked about tonight, keep that in mind. Run that through your mind with the snatch. And then the only thing that changes is that instead of going to the front rack, we're going to catch it overhead, fully overhead. So this week is power snatch. You don't have to show us a full snatch, but if you want to show us your full snatch, that's okay too. Again, if you're not comfortable with these, it's okay to take them from the hang. If something's going on with your shoulder, we have a bunch of alternatives too, dumbbell snatch, some different snatch variations. So make sure you find something that works and show us your snatch. This is our last week of lecture. We talk about how to integrate all of this in clinical practice and kind of how to come alongside a CrossFit gym or gyms in your area. So if that's your path moving forward with this class, please come with questions. We would love to answer questions. All
right, team, we're winding down to the end here, so let's finish strong. looking forward to week 8, talking snatch analysis and sending this thing out on a high note. So looking forward to your videos. In the meantime, have a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend with your family. Enjoy that time. And we'll see you back here next Monday night, guys. Have a good one.
Bye, folks. Happy Thanksgiving. See you next week.